here in my courtyard with Chris Russi, who is the Director of Winemaking / winemaker for Comstock. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. And of course, we have Jacques Brix, our colorful color guy, joining us.
Yes.
How are you today?
Good afternoon.
Good. So I've been reading a little bit about you. And did you notice the title of our episode here?
Yeah, I saw that bird bottle.
Yes. Do you have any idea why it's named that?
Perfect, because I was going to be an ornithologist? Or?
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, people have such interesting ways they enter the wine industry. And that, of course, wasn't how you entered. But I read that you studied the scrub jays for a year.
That's right. Yeah, with UC Berkeley down in Carmel Valley, studying them, yeah. To the point where I was alone pretty much for a year on this 4,500 acre.
Wow. So it's like a pandemic situation
Kinda,
almost,
yeah.
right?
Yes,
You
I'm
and the
ready for
scrub
it.
jays. And so how did you get interested in ornithology in the first place?
Well, I went to Santa Clara University, and I was studying a lot of science, biology and chemistry, and then, I was sort of a long-haired, motorcycle riding environmentalist kind of. So I just really got into ecology, and so my last couple years there, I was doing a lot of entomology, ornithology, and a lot of ecology courses, and so. I graduated from Santa Clara University, and that was my first job down there. I was making $300 a month.
Mm-hmm.
A month, yeah.
Wow.
And that was just for room, not board either. So, but I loved it. I was there for a year, and it was when I was there I got a call from a couple guys who were my uncle Bernie Orsi and Mike Cumulus, who were just had purchased property up here and planted it. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. Other than sort of enjoying a few wineries down in Carmel Valley, really got the influence through them, and that's when it all sort of took off.
Well, in this interview I read, which was very interesting, I was laughing because they said, what would you, did you originally want to be a winemaker? And you said, no, I wanted to be a brewer. And then they said, if you weren't a winemaker, what would you be? And you said a brandy maker. And I'm like, the guy just wanted to make alcohol. Good for you.
Right.
Across the board. You covered the bases. It's very nice.
Yeah. Well, I did make a lot of beer in college, Santa Clara, and then I'm doing brandy. I've built a little still, 99, and I've been doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's nice when
stuff.
oxygen isn't the enemy, right?
Right. Exactly.
Jacques looks intrigued, like you haven't been sharing your.
You're making brandy, not grappa. Right?
Well, there was some grappa that I did, but grappa typically is distilled off of the skins, whereas brandy is distilled wine. Yeah.
From wine, yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have your own still? And
I did. I built a 55-gallon still.
So it's all permitted and everything.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Just want to make sure.
Permitted. Hey, just mind your own business over there.
Forbidden.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, it's not a French word, by the way.
Yeah, there's no need
no
for that word
permit
in
in the French language.
Permitted and exist in France.
Well, may we open this
Yes,
wonderful
let's do it. Would you
sparkling?
like to?
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay,
please.
cool.
There you go. And would you like to tell us about this?
Yeah, this is Comstock's 2017 Blanc de Blanc, 100% Chardonnay, and it comes from the property right next to us, just north of us. We buy a few tons and we make it in-house, and then we send it to Rack and Riddle for tirage bottling and then through the process. I did a small stint at J Sparkling Wines.
I remember that.
Back in '99, yeah, and at that point learned how to make sparkling wine, and always had a love for Blanc de Blanc, 100% Chardonnay versus that sort of Pinot influence.
Well, and for those of you who are not familiar with Comstock, it is a beautiful facility in Dry Creek Valley that is actually right off of Dry Creek Road. Here, let me help you here. And Chris has had the pleasure and the honor, because you're good at it. From what I understand, you built everything from the very beginning. Like, you chose all the equipment, you designed things in the cellar.
Yeah.
I mean, what a luxury.
It was great. Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank
Let me
you.
get you a little more here. Yeah, I started
And
2013.
very few winemakers ever have that opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a rare thing. So good for you. Oh, and here we have some footage of the beautiful winery. Wow, look at those olive trees.
Yeah, those are amazing, aren't they? 130-year-old olives.
And so the winery is an hour and a half. We're about an hour and 45 minutes north of the Bay Area, north of San Francisco. And it is a lovely place to visit.
Mm-hmm.
And you're open by appointment. You have visitors regularly, don't you?
Yes, yeah. At this point, we're appointment only, yeah. But we also have wonderful offerings. We have a in-house executive chef, Chef Jude Affronti, who does these incredible pairings. I mean, one of the more talented chefs at pairings, and he loves the wines. He does a fantastic job. And then we do other things, blending seminars, things like that by appointment, and yeah.
Well, one thing that has struck me when I've been there is obviously, I don't know if you're, I don't know what your actual title is, whether it's general manager or not, but you obviously have a very good relationship with the hospitality staff, which is nice because it's rare for the winemaker to be as involved in the hospitality part of it, to the extent that people are really getting the full experience of how you make the wines and how wines pair with food, and that's pretty unusual.
Yeah, but it's important, right? I mean, you
Yes.
know, it's like educating people on every aspect of wine is so important, because something's going to hit that really rings for any individual that just, makes them glob on. So,
Well, and I've also, of course, I've known you now for a really long time. I knew you from your Christopher Creek days, but
Yeah,
you've always been
yeah.
very humble and very kind about talking to people when they have questions, and there's a lot to be said for that.
right, cool.
Pretty
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Do
and
you do a winery tours like the production site itself? Like
Yes,
the
absolutely. We
custom
take,
crush?
what's really pretty cool too is we take people through typically around harvest time. So when it's really active in the cellar, open top fermenters are all full. We can have people do, pneumatic punch down.
or you let
We'll let
people on the tours
yeah,
get to
yeah,
touch
yeah.
down? That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
and we'll open them up, and then typically we'll pull aside some
Oh,
small.
here we
yeah,
are,
so
yeah.
that's the punch down device that we use, and we've got 8 tanks. It's on a track, so it goes across the top of each one.
Now at Selby, we balance on a beam and manually.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a little primitive,
No,
but
and sweat
it works,
is
right?
in right into the. Yeah, no, I used to, I did that too.
I know,
right?
I know. We've all
But
done
this
that.
way, we do, 8 tanks in 2 hours versus, a half or 45 minutes a tank.
But you produce a lot of open top. You do a lot of open top fermentation, correct?
Yeah, we do. But every tank that we bought and sort of selected for, we can actually do closed top fermentation too, because we've lifted them all off the ground and we can get.
Well, and what we're talking about is in the fermentation process, you can either have a closed top tank where you put the grapes in the tank, induce fermentation, and typically there's a sprinkler system that irrigates to make sure that there's a maximum amount of contact between the grapes and the juice. But with open top fermentation, it's a more gentle process, but it's, I think punching down, it gives it a lot more extraction in terms of, Pinot Noir, for instance, isn't an extractive grape, but you get more extraction than you would, and it's more gentle on the fruit itself. So it's really a better process to do open tops, but it's a lot of work.
It is. And then also for open tops, you can not just do punch downs, you can do pump overs, whereas if it's a closed top, you're sort of bound by just pump overs, right? Or rack and returns,
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And what is your favorite wine you make?
Oh, geez, I love them all. Today,
Just have
I
to
don't know.
ask. It's obnoxious to ask
the
that,
whites
but-
might be Viognier. I love making Viognier. It's because it's one of those wines that, I do try to harvest it sort of, on the lesser side, 22.5, 23, and we press it off. So it's got a lot of acid, but it can be a very fat wine, and oily. But as soon as it starts to ferment, that's when the terpenes are released and the whole cellar just smells
Oh, yeah.
like flowers. Yeah.
I
But
made,
Pinot for reds might be Pinot or Zin, yeah.
I actually made Viognier in the 90s, and it was. People hated having to pronounce it. It was painful for them.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, you know, Merlot sales were really good back then.
Right,
and they'd
right,
go, how do you?
So no more Viognier.
I know.
Yeah, he
so.
pronounces perfectly Viognier. Yeah.
Are you going to correct his?
From the French
No, I'm
guy.
not correcting. No,
Ah, nice.
no, not that I would know.
Do you do any other esoteric varietals like Viognier, which is super esoteric?
You know, yeah. You know, we do Syrah and Grenache, super small quantity out of Gemrose down in Bennett Valley. A little bit of Petite Syrah maybe as well. And I say maybe because it sort of changes from year to year.
Now, are you still? You're still pretty hands-on in the cellar too, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where that's where the love for winemaking comes from. And I'm not sort of one of the. I mean, you have to be at a desk now for me, you know. But no, every day, you know. And I'll do anything that everybody else does as well. So, you know, if a tank needs to be clean and everybody's doing something, I'll get in the tank.
You don't
and clean
ask
it.
people to do things you wouldn't do.
Right, exactly.
I actually read your little tragic story about the valve incident too.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was a good one. Geyser
Oh my
Peak.
gosh, I have nightmares about that. Evidently, there was a valve. Something happened, and a valve came off of a tank. But you were able to save the wine until
Yeah.
someone came to help you, which is
Yeah, yeah,
a great.
yeah.
How'd
it's
you do
it's
that?
scary when that happens.
It was actually like a 5-inch valve with like this, you know, this big wheel to close it, gate valve, and I took off the wrong clamp, and the hose came off, and it just this gush like literally, and so I slammed my ass against it. And I just held it there, and I just held it until like, oh, I'm
all you can do
screaming,
is, right?
figuring over, and they're closing it. Well, yeah,
That's
I got-
beautiful. I hadn't heard that one.
It worked. I didn't know what else to do. Yeah. Yeah. But I actually was able to. You know, you had to kind of hold on to something to
That's
hold.
hard
Oh,
to
yeah.
do.
It was.
And there's huge. That's 5,000 gallon tank.
Oh no, it was much bigger. It was like
much
a
bigger. Oh my
25,000 gallon tank.
That's
Yeah, no, I would have lost a
crazy.
lot of wine.
It was like a 25,000
Yo, it
gallon
was huge.
tank.
I mean, Geyser Peak. You know, it's they've got
Oh
100,000
my
gallon tanks there. Yeah,
gosh.
it was.
Wow, that's scary.
That's a good story.
Yeah, and that was like
Never
my
heard that
first
one.
couple months there at Geyser Peak. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's impressive with a tank that big.
Yeah.
Did you ever do night shift while you were at Geyser,
At Geyser Peak, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Night shift is always interesting.
Oh yeah, no doubt. It was a lot of fun.
I know, I used to do that. I remember waking up to the sound of splashing, and so I started, I would, if I was worried I'd fall asleep, I'd put my hand in the tank because you could feel it when it hit your
Did the
fingers.
same thing, exactly.
Wake you up.
Yeah, yeah,
Have you done that
exactly.
before?
Oh, yeah.
I know, it
Had
works,
maybe a little
right?
too much to drink the night before.
Oh,
so
well, yeah, there's
No,
that.
of course not.
There's always a hangover. Yeah, especially when you're young and doing night shift.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
true. I love that.
That's good. I didn't know anybody else did that. That's a good
You
one.
know, I've never actually discussed it with anyone either, but it does work when
It
you're
does.
catching that nap. For
So
sure.
after Geyser Peak, did you go to Thomas George? Is that what you did?
I did. I actually did a little stint in Australia, Peter Lehman Wines for a year, 97. And yeah, so I was there for 4 months and
Were you
got
an
back.
intern?
I was at Peter
Nice.
Lehman's. I was in charge of chilling the wines, so we'd run it through these heat exchangers, and it's basically all I did. It was a huge wine, 1 million cases, right? Yeah. So after that, I went to UC Davis. Yeah. So I went
Oh,
back.
just
I got home.
before. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So 98 to 2000, I was at Davis.
I love your comment about being an intern. So interns are very popular in the wine industry, and they're international. So people come from, you know, other countries, obviously here. But you said you had one specific job.
Yeah.
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 And
that's all
that
it
was your job.
That was my job. Yeah.
And that, I mean, it's the beauty of an intern.
Wow.
They'll
at
give you a
big
job.
facilities. Yeah. Yeah.
So you learned everything there was to learn about chilling.
Chilling wine. Yeah. And it was funny because at the time, Geyser Peak had those, you know, those big rotary fermenters, and so that's actually how I got my foot in the door in Australia, because I sort of, you know, got the visa through Daryl Groom and the like to work in Australia because I was sort of a quote unquote expert on these rotary fermenters. And so when I got there, They had 2 of them, but I didn't. I barely even used them. So.
Well, and describe it. So a rotary fermenter, there's several different kinds. Was this one that's on its side?
There's one on the side, yeah.
And maybe describe what it does exactly.
Yeah, so it's like a big cement mixer. It's got these baffles inside, and instead of doing punch downs or pump overs like we talked about, it's actually, you just rotate it. Make sure all the doors are shut, and we learned that.
Make sure all
really
those doors
quick.
are shut. I've learned that one too.
We learned that quick. And then you rotate it. It rotates, and then you program it so it rotates on its own. 5 times a day, every 3 or 4 hours, and and it really makes a wine that's incredibly inky, but they can be somewhat reduced. And so, Geyser Peak, we put our best stuff in there.
And reduced, he's talking about rotten egg smell. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Too much.
Exactly. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, go on.
It just doesn't get enough air, so you get that sort of stink. So, Geyser Peak, at the time, we were putting our best stuff in them, and then, in Australia, they had them for quite a while, so they weren't putting their best stuff in there, shall I say.
You mean they?
So
it wasn't new technology.
Yeah,
so
and
they
it
were
wasn't.
sort of taking
Yeah,
it for
and they
granted
didn't think
and-
that was going to be their highest quality. Where it wasn't about so much extraction there in Australia, and at the time here, it was in '95, '96. It was all about big wines, inky, extracted, big tannic wines. At least for Geyser Peak at the time. I mean, they were, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Is it because Australia, they just naturally have the bigger wines there, so they?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I think it more had to do, instead of the ink, with sort of the reduction side of things. Yeah. But, I mean, that's kind of where I learned my love for both Syrah and Grenache, right? Because they've got these wonderful 100-plus-year-old vines, like we have Zinfandel here, but there it's Grenache and Syrah. And we actually, at Peter Lehman, I mean, Peter Lehman was a legend in the industry where he at a time in the 70s sort of saved the vineyards by taking all the fruit from growers who, the government was saying, rip these vineyards out. And he was saying, no, I'll take them. We need to keep these vineyards, because he knew something special about them, And especially now that they're of age, like, you can't bring them back, obviously.
And is the old vine in Australia cuttings from France, I assume?
Yeah, I don't know that. That's a good question. I mean, the ones we get here, if we were to buy, they would be designated either Syrah or Shiraz. But yeah, I don't know what it would have been originally
Interesting.
there.
That must have been an interesting experience.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing, and it's very different. I mean, Shiraz, typically you want to get those grapes to where they're sort of wrinkling and raisioning, and then you put them in French oak and like 50%.
That's a weird.
Oh, sorry, American oak for Australia, and then here Syrah, we pick it earlier and we put it in French oak. And
Yeah, Syrah is one of the only varietals where it's not ready unless it's dimpled.
Yeah.
At all. Like
Yeah.
I don't even check bricks sometimes until it has to look ratty.
Yeah, it does.
For it to be ready. Is there any other grape like that? I don't really think there is.
No, probably not. I mean, Zinfandel can get that way, just
Yeah.
because of the inconsistent ripening.
Yeah, and Grenache just can look ratty.
Yeah,
just
but
has that look
Grenache,
to it,
sometimes,
yeah.
I mean, it's like 25 bricks and it's still not colored up yet.
Yeah, I
mean,
know. I know. Interesting.
Hmm.
Okay, and I understand, so you have your own vineyard, and I was reading about your vineyard. It's an Old Vine Zin, correct?
Old Vine Zin, yeah. 100 and, well, it'll be 13 years old now.
Oh, okay, so now we're looking at
So,
footage.
yeah. Is that
Yeah,
it?
yeah, that's it. So those are, it's all head trained, and it's amazing.
And head train means it's not on a trellis, obviously. When you bought it, did you have to get any plant misses? Or is it the original?
Yes.
All the original vines?
It was at the time all the original vines. I bought it in 2004.
Oh, wow.
And I actually did a huge replant with Ulysses Valdez a year before he passed away. Yeah, and so he was out there, and I mean, he was a good friend from Thomas George Estates. He was our
Yeah.
vineyard manager, and so we, I've got about 950 vines, and I think we replaced about 300, 250 or something. So he brought his guys out there, and we would walking around with wine as they were working. I mean, that's kind of how. Yeah,
that's
but
so
it was
nice.
it was
What a
cool.
wonderful man.
He was great.
And he loved vines.
Oh God,
he loved vineyards.
soil.
Like
he loved
really
vineyard. Yeah.
loved everything. He loved the whole thing.
Yeah, I had one vine out there. I called it a pine vine because when I first bought the place, there was a little pine tree. It was like 2 or 3 inches coming out of the center of one of the wheels, of these vines, and I let it grow, and it got huge, and it got to be like.
Wait, it was coming out. Where was the little pine
I think
tree?
what happened is a bird dropped a seed right in the center of sort of the goblet, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And it grew up, and this thing got huge. It was like 20 feet tall, and I hate pine trees. I mean, pine trees are not my favorite trees. I mean, unless they're where they're supposed to be, but they're not supposed to be in a vineyard.
In a vineyard.
Yeah. So the first time he came over, it was so funny. He bent down and knelt in front of it. And he's like, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" It was so cool, because what was happening is it grew right through the plant, and then it just started busting out the plant. But it was still
Like, did you see it when it was
clusters
small?
were- yeah,
And you were
I've got
watching it
photos of this
grow?
thing like this,
And how big
then
is it
the trunk
now?
eventually when I ripped it, we
Oh, you
had to
took it out?
when we did the replant,
Uh-huh.
we took it out. But I mean, it was a good 8 inches in diameter. Yeah, I mean, it was a huge pine, and I kept hacking at it every year,
Oh.
just so it wouldn't.
They say
destroy
what
canopy.
life will find a way.
Yeah, yeah,
Find a way. Wow.
yeah. It was
Huh.
pretty amazing. Yeah.
Actually, that just makes me think that your background and your love of the environment and ornithology, I'm sure that's circled back to have impact on you now as a vineyard owner.
Yeah, it
And a
does.
winemaker.
I do everything in my vineyard myself. So I spray, and I don't, it's all bioorganic stuff, bacteria stuff to inhibit sulfur. But at the beginning of the year when I was spraying, that's when all these birds are setting up nests all, in the vines.
yeah.
And whenever I see it, I stop spraying, and then I'll photo it and video it. And it's pretty cool to see, these two mourning doves, from 2 little eggs to these 2 little fledglings. It was pretty cool.
Oh, did you watch them?
Oh
from
yeah,
the-
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Every other day I'd go out and just check them. And the mother would fly off, and yeah.
Well, we're in an interesting area for everything in our beautiful town of Healdsburg, but the bird population is fascinating here.
It is.
Truly.
Yeah, it is.
There are landlocked pelicans at Sire Ranch. If you ever want to go see those,
Wow.
isn't that crazy?
You mean
they
on
breed
Russian
there.
River?
Yes, on the Russian River. Sire Industries is a gravel company, and they, of course, are taking out gravel, and some man-made lakes are formed. And there's an area that has pelican breeding grounds in the middle of the Russian
Wow.
River.
I didn't know that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But, we have bald eagles.
Yeah,
and,
no, I've seen. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we have just such beautiful
Yeah,
wildlife here.
yeah.
Do you, just off on a tangent here, do you think that, I know that people are going more to sustainable, that's certainly the impression I have, and organic. I mean, do you two think it's having an impact on wildlife and animals? Like, because it seems like we're getting more animals coming through than we used to.
Yeah, that's a good question. It probably does. I mean, it kind of has to, right? Or maybe it doesn't have to, but
Seems
I mean,
that way
there's
to me. I see more than I used to, which
Okay,
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
is sort of fun.
Yeah. I mean, you remember when we, 15, 20 years ago, when you were fumigating, land
know.
before you'd plant it. Like, you can't do
know.
that anymore. And then not only that, but, now we know a little bit more about Roundup and, the potential of cancer. And so, talking to a good friend at Allied Grape Growers who's talking about, hey, you got to move away from this stuff or people aren't going to buy that fruit anymore. And that might be the thing in the future. We'll see. I mean, if it becomes more important to people, which I think it is, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest reason why I use, like, I don't like to use sulfur in the vineyard because, the dog will run out there and all of a sudden, or you walk out there and you smell like sulfur, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Serenade, Sonata, other teas that I brew that I spray on. And
Do you love those names? Like, how could something named Serenade be bad for you?
Exactly.
Or Sonata.
Yeah.
I know, it's got to be.
Yeah.
Good
It's
marketing
got to be
ploy.
healthy. I know, there's no way it could be bad.
Yeah.
So what do you use then if you don't use these? I mean, you just Mother Nature take care of it? Or?
Yeah, no. No, I do. So I spray, but Serenade and Sonata are actually this. It's a bacterium, so it's super benign.
And tell
you can
people-
actually drink it.
Tell people what you're spraying for.
Don't drink
just
it.
so they understand.
So basically, we're spraying for powdery mildew. So that's the big one, and then also botrytis. Sonata is good
so
for
rot.
powder. So rot, yeah. So at sort of from fruit set all the way up to, or even prior to that, once these vines are 6-8 inches long, I start the spraying, and then we cease about this time. I did my last spray just a couple mornings ago, because once you get into verasion and sugar accumulation and the acids are going down, then there's less of a chance for powdery, but then some of those berries break, and then you've got an issue with botrytis. So one of those bacteria is better than the other for either of those. And again, it's a bacteria, so you're really not using sort of a poison to kill the sulfur. You're using a bacterium so that it can actually spread across that berry and sort of protect it from
you're
the influence of the other mold.
using a little army.
Yeah.
Little soldiers. To
And
do your
it's like
work for
totally
you.
benign. Like I said, it's like I go out there and you smell, I wear the whole outfit when I'm out there, but it smells kind of like peanut butter, There's another product I use for weed killer in my vineyard. It's Weed Slayer. Have you heard of it?
Weed Slayer.
Yeah, I love the
think
name
I
first.
know.
It's a great name.
Weed Slayer.
Slayer. Yeah, but it's actually like a eugenol or clove oil. So you're mixing a clove
Wow.
oil with this bacterium, and then you spray it you spray it on the weeds, and it kills them. And it's pretty damn effective if you do it right. Temperature's got to be right, pH has got to be right. But I spray the vineyard without a mask because I love the smell of it. I mean, the whole place smells like clove, and yeah, it's great.
Well,
Anyhow.
if you can spray without a mask,
Yeah,
clearly
exactly.
you're using.
Yeah, and the other thing about it, which is cool, is that you don't. It's not registered through the government or the county, so you don't have to report using it because you're putting
right.
a food
And you
on
don't need
a
that
weed. Yeah.
dirty word that doesn't exist in France. Permit.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. No, that's nice. Yeah, do you live on your property? Do you live on your vineyard?
I do.
And,
Yeah.
And when you bought the vineyard originally, were you looking for a vineyard or were you dry? It's always interesting. Whenever people buy vineyards, there's always a sort of a story behind it.
Yeah, no, it was actually a pretty good story. It was so I was working at Christopher Creek at the time, purchasing the grapes from this vineyard, and so I'd go and sample, and I knew it since from 2000 to 2004, and then there's a little granny unit, and there's a woman living in the granny unit who came up to the winery one day and said,
Well, let's keep it clean now.
she came to the winery and she said, I think the owner is going to sell the property. And I said, why do you think? She said, well, we're getting all these things in the mail, and I just keep passing them on to her. I was like, wow. She said, if you're interested, you should call her. So she lived down in Woodside, so I gave her a call. She was a widow, right? She lost her husband in a terrible boating accident up here, like Sonoma. Anyhow, so she was kind of, sort of looking for another husband, maybe. Anyhow, she was in France.
See, I told you.
That's the place to go to look for a husband. So I called her and left a message at Woodside, and I got this phone call and a message at like 3 a.m, which I didn't answer, but she left this message, and she may have been drinking because she started out with, "There is no way in the world I'm ever going to sell that winery." That vineyard to anybody because it reminds me of my husband, blah, blah, blah. And she starts going in, I'm in France right now. I just met this wonderful man. I don't know, I might stay here. I'm gonna be back in a couple months. Listen, when I get there, I'll get in touch with you and you can come look at the property if you wanna buy it. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm trying to figure, what does that mean? So sure enough, she called me in 3 months and said, come down and check it out. So I know
Wow.
the vineyard and the property really well, but never was inside the house or the granny unit or the garage or anything. So we did it sort of without a realtor, and yeah, it worked out great.
So you weren't looking at all. It just stopped.
Well, I was looking. I mean,
but it
I would have
came to
loved
you.
to,
It
yeah.
came to you.
But it's also, everywhere I've lived here in Healdsburg has been outside of town, and and that's kind of what I wanted to do. I've always grown up in an area where you don't have a neighbor right next to you or sidewalks or whatnot. So I always kind of love that concept, So yeah, I was able to pull it off.
Do you? You must spend a lot of time on your vineyard since you live there.
I do, yeah.
It's one of
and I
the
still
best-
love it. I mean, I
Yeah,
really still
I
do
know.
enjoy it.
I know.
Even getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to spray it,
And is your personal vineyard one of the vineyards that is a label at Comstock?
It is, yeah.
And
so
what is it called?
it's called, well, we call it Zor, but that's for Old Vine Zinfandel, Russian River Zinfandel. Yeah, and we call it Zor because that's part of the SKU. But it's our Russian River Old Vine Zin. And it's now we've just put
Like
a
is
vineyard
Zor
design
on
in.
the label, or is that an
No,
inside
like I
thing?
said, it's part of the SKU.
So if
It's the SKU.
consumers want to be super cool,
I shouldn't have said Zor.
yeah. Can they show up and
But that
say,
one-
Let's erase that.
give me
Okay.
some Zor?
Zor.
If they come in and say, I want a bottle of
give-
Zor, no, we might give them 2, actually.
Just wondering. Okay.
So what's different about it? I mean,
The vineyard?
Being
again,
that old.
Yeah, well, that's cool because Old Vine Zin, we do a Dry Creek and we do a Russian River, and we're able to compare the two. Typically, our Old Vine Dry Creek has more of those sort of more red, more strawberry, whereas the Russian River is darker fruit, a little bit more tannin, a little bit more intense. Yeah.
So Chris is comparing Dry Creek to Russian River in terms of Zin, and those are two completely different climates. Like Russian River is typically a cool climate, Dry Creek Valley is typically a warm climate, but your vineyard is sort of on the edge of cool, and
It's a warmer region of Russian River.
but you
Yeah.
would say that your vineyard is more fruit forward. Would you say? Or I'm
More
just-
darker fruit.
Oh, darker
and,
fruit,
and
nice.
actually even some like clove, maybe a little bit more spicy, more savory notes than we'd get out of Dry Creek is definitely more fruit forward. Yeah, more red fruit, raspberry, strawberry fruit forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I bring this up a lot to people, but things are planted in regions for a reason because
Yeah.
they grow well there.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Russian River. I love that edgy Russian River Valley Zin that still isn't, because it seems to get longer hang time.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
but Dry Creek is classic. And what other wines do you make at Comstock? Can we open this Zin?
Yeah, this is. Yeah, this is.
I know we're getting sort
is
of
our Old Vine
we're
Dry
getting
Creek.
to the end-ish.
Ish.
But we still have a wine to taste. So.
We do a lot of wines. We do 4 different whites, which is Blanc de Blanc, a Chardonnay, a Viognier, a Sauvignon Blanc. We do a Rosé, which is kind of half Saunier, half Vin Gris style.
Saunier means that
Yeah, you sort of bleed off of the.
you crush it and then
Exactly, same
off.
day. The Vin Gris style, we actually harvest it, goes direct to press. So we harvested it, like 21 bricks. So it's still high in
Wow.
acid, low pH, and not really high in sugar. And then that we, and then so rosé, and then we do a bunch of reds. 4 different Zinfandels, a Merlot, 2 different cabs,
Merlot.
a Grenache, a Syrah, Pinot Noir,
Now,
late harvest.
do you distribute?
No, we don't. We're
Well, good for
pretty
you for
much
making a
direct, yeah.
Merlot and you don't distribute.
Well, the Merlot is amazing. I mean, it's
I'm a big lover
Are
of
you?
Merlot.
Yeah, I
Yes,
wish I
I
brought it
love
today.
Merlot.
It's one of my favorite Merlots because it's right there in Dry Creek and it's right on our winery ranch. So it's right, sort of beyond.
Oh, so
the
it's an
tasting room.
estate.
Exactly. And it's just, it's a lovely wine. I mean, it's got some wonderful fruit to it. Yeah. What are we laughing about?
Jacques,
Need to open it.
Yeah.
Need to
Thanks,
open
Jacques. Professionally given. I don't know what the
Have you
hell.
ever seen somebody talking with like a piece of food in their hand and the dog can't stop staring at the food? He's watching your hand go toward the cork and go down. It's the same concept. Gosh.
Classic.
So so you have some estate fruit and some fruit.
Yeah, about a third of what we do is estate, which is Old Vine Zin. We do a younger Vine Zin, which is like a 40-year-old Zin on our property, Merlot and Sauvignon Blanc, and then the home ranch, which is further up valley, Sauvignon Blanc, Zinfandel, and Cabernet.
Oh, very
Yeah,
nice.
so we do a Dry Creek Cabernet Sauvignon, Alexander Valley Cabernet. And the Alexander Valley is pretty much half Miller family, which is Garden Creek, and half Viborni, Alex Viborni.
And do you oversee the vineyards as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's how it all got started for me in the vineyard, you know, with Orsi Cumulus. And I mean, it's, you know, also being outside, I have a love for vineyards. So,
Yeah.
So I do, there's a lot of communication with growers and yeah.
Sorry, now he's staring at the bottle.
Let's pour it.
We don't have any glasses, but it's
There's
okay.
a glass.
Oh,
Oh, I do have a glass. Thank you.
gosh, I don't have a glass.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you took yours
Oh,
inside.
I'm going to grab a glass.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about the eggs?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, concrete eggs. Here we go.
I'm going to bring this up because, thank you. So the eggs, every time you say Chris Russi, people bring up the eggs. And these are these concrete eggs that you're like the father of eggs
I don't know.
in Sonoma County or something. I mean,
You know how maybe I got that title? So,
But I mentioned at the very beginning that you oversaw the equipment purchases and designed the winery at Comstock, but you also did it at Thomas George Estates.
exactly.
So that's where this whole
That's where it all
thing
started. Yeah.
I mean, you're just associated with those eggs. And,
Right.
and can you tell people what these are and why they're desirable?
Yes, they're awesome. I love them. They're Sonoma Cast Stone out of Petaluma created these eggs back in 08-ish.
And it's spelled like EGG.
Yeah, it's an egg.
Yes.
It's because of the shape of the
Yeah.
egg. Yeah, and it's concrete. It's
Thank
about
you.
5 inches thick, and it's like a sponge. So it's got,
Thank you
air.
so much.
They don't breathe, but they have air within the concrete. So as you, we put juice in there and ferment them, and we figure there's about 3 months or so of air influence to, not just initially with the yeast, but also sort of with the aging process. So the two we have at Comstock now is we use one for Viognier and we use one for Sauvignon Blanc, and it's part of the blend. But originally, when the story goes, back in 08, Steve Rosenblatt built, I think, 6 or 8 of them, and Thomas George Estates, we bought 4 of them. We loved them so much, we bought another, I think, 6 or 8. And and then Steve started sending people to Thomas George to look at the eggs, and winemakers, we'd talk about them, and so I apparently helped him sell a bunch of them.
I was sent there to look at them.
Were you?
Yeah, when I was working at Rabbit Ridge.
Oh, right.
Like, go look at those.
Yeah.
Look at those eggs.
I mean, they're pretty big. I mean, can you describe, because people think an egg is...
No, they're huge. They're 500 gallons, so they stand about...
They're big in Europe.
Yeah, but not so big, yes. I'm not so large, yeah.
No, but big, like popular.
Yes,
Oh.
yes.
Big eggs.
Hey, did you want any of this?
He got some, he did get some.
You've already,
I've
no
already
wonder
poured
you're
some
not,
in.
okay, here, we'll share the bottle. No wonder.
Yeah, I think they started in France.
It started,
Nomblot,
Nomblot, yeah.
Well,
And that was actually originally, it came from a guy who, he built coffins, concrete coffins, and a winemaker had come to him and said, "Hey, can you make it so it's a vessel that I can
that's
ferment in?"
interesting.
So apparently the first ones were actually on their side, and they were coffin shaped. And then they decided to lift them and round them, and those ones are really only 120 gallons, I think, the biggest ones.
So what does it do inside? Because
Yeah.
the shape, so it ferments.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. During fermentation, you see this swirling effect. It's almost like a current moving, and you can also imagine where the lees settles on the bottom is a very small spot. So if you want to mix that lees in, which we'll do for both of those, we actually can get to it really easily, as opposed to a cylindrical tank where a lot of the lees gets caught in the edges. Yeah.
I see, it's concentrated in the center.
Yeah,
Right,
but the
okay.
biggest thing, other than that current, is sort of what it's made of, and the fact that it does, the oxygen influences the fermentation as well as the wine over time.
Can you control, when you purchase it, does the material allow you to control how much oxygen exposure there could be?
No,
during
you
the
can't.
fermentation
Yeah, no,
process?
that you can't. I mean, other than opening the top and allowing more
Right.
oxygen in. Yeah, no, but you can't. We do, though. We have sort of these embedded, liquid glycol that can go through the center of these things, so we can actually cool the ferment during fermentation as well as if once it's wine.
Nice.
So that's kind of cool. It's built in these
Yeah.
little heat exchangers. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to wait till it gets cold outside and forklift it out the door.
right.
That's an option. Yeah, that's totally
Works
cool.
here.
I'd love to
Yeah,
see
it was
that.
cool. So then what happened is, I had bought so many for Thomas George, and we had sold so many apparently that Steve came to me one day, took me to lunch, and he said, from here on out, they're 50% for you, 50% of the cost. So I got budgeted for one for Comstock, and we ended up getting two. Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
Well, once you have one, you want more. I
Yeah,
understand.
exactly. And they're great. I mean, like I said, we use them for whites now, but back there I was using them for Syrah, for Pinot Noir. I mean, I've got a 100% concrete Pinot we were doing. It was pretty amazing, actually.
Well, and I assume the bacteria, you can't completely sterilize them, correct? Because they're
No.
porous?
Yes, exactly. We don't use any chemicals in those. We use ultraviolet light, actually, which sanitizes
wow.
really well, actually.
Really?
So we drop a UV bulb in there, leave it for 5-10 minutes, and everything on the surface as well as within the sort of the little pores will get sanitized. Yeah. So, and that's where the majority of the population of any yeast or bacteria is going to be anyhow. So,
Huh.
yeah.
Wow, interesting. Well, we're getting to the end of our.
Concrete eggs.
We have concrete. Everybody has photos
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
there's-
concrete
yeah,
eggs. I know. Yes, Rob, our camera guy.
What do you
Loves the
think is
eggs.
the
They're a big
latest
thing.
innovation you're going to add to your winery
Wow,
for-
good
for
question.
production? Are there things like sorters? Are there
Yeah.
things?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what is available these days, with optical sorting.
When
and-
Jacques talking about a sorter, so that when grapes come in, there's a machine that can determine. It's almost like Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory when the blueberry for the golden egg or whatever would be bad.
Right.
You just drop through.
Just drop it out.
Yeah,
and the other eggs
exactly.
go
I know.
through.
It's the same technology.
Yeah, it's amazing technology. It is. No, I mean, we don't have that technology so much. I mean, we've got the equipment we've purchased is extremely gentle, but we do need people to run it. I mean, we don't have just people standing there watching. The people are there actually. We're actually looking at clusters. So we have an incline which will take clusters, and we can put part of the cluster off, or a MOG material other than grapes will pull out. That'll go into the destemmer and then across a shaker table. So we have more people sorting, and then from there we can either pump it to an open top or dump it over the open top. I mean, other than that, I mean, the technology we do have there is pretty cool. I mean, we also have every tank and every room in the cellar temperature controlled, which I can do from my phone
Do you have the
anywhere in
phone
the world. Yeah,
technology?
yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
pretty amazing. But yeah, as far as production side of things, no, it's very hands-on, which I kind of like, so we can see.
Do you have an alarm on your phone if something malfunctions?
Yes,
Has it ever gone off?
it has. The first year,
Wow.
the first year our chiller went
Serious.
down, and all of a sudden I had like 6 fermenters which were climbing in temperature, and the alarm went off. And I live 4 miles from the winery, so I raced the winery.
What
It
time
like,
of day
It
was
was
it?
like 2 in the morning.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, it's never
Of course.
But it
during
was
the day.
easy. It was just a reset button on the chiller, which you reset the button, waited about 10 minutes, it kicked on, and everything was good, and went home, went back
Wow.
to bed. Yeah,
Wow.
so it saved some things. Yeah,
That's an awesome thing to have.
yeah, it is.
Well, the final comment I'll say, and I'm going back to this interview because I thought it was a fun interview, but you said that your biggest strength and your biggest weekness is that you're a perfectionist. I love that. It can work for you or against
Both ways.
you, right?
I know it. Keeps you up at night. but I mean, if it's about quality, right? Then,
Well,
yeah.
you're a talented wine. I've never tasted a wine you've made that I haven't thought was absolutely fabulous.
Wow, right on. Thank you, Susie.
No, truly,
That's sweet.
truly.
Appreciate it.
Did he just get married or something?
Yes. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Because all the ladies are watching and said, "Hey, is he single?"
Wear a ring. can't you?
Yeah. Oh, is he?
Well, here's your recent marriage. That's exciting too.
Thank you. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And thank you for being here. Do you have any final comments you'd like to say to people as far as visiting the winery, being in Dry Creek Valley, seeing what you all are doing at Comstock?
Yeah, yeah. I would invite anybody and everybody. And you know, if the timing is right, I'm usually there from 6:30 to about 3:30, and I would. It's my pleasure to take people through because you know, I mean, when you've helped build something, you're proud of it, and I am so
Yeah.
proud of everything that we've done there. That it's always a pleasure to take people through, not just vineyards, but also through sort of what we built there and what we have. And it's a special place. I mean, yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
Well, thank you, Chris, and
Cool.
thank you, Jacques. We appreciate it. And cheers to everyone. We will be back next week. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay home, and we will be back in the courtyard.
Cool.